All right, another really important American writer that is going to appear on the names of important writers of the 20th century is Tennessee Williams. Now, Tennessee Williams' plays are very much caught up in the idea of the South. He was a Southern writer. He was from, I want to say Louisiana. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, he was from the South, and a lot of his plays talked about the ethos of being a Southerner. So that comes up a lot. That might be one reason I don't get into him as much. I'm a Northerner. I'm from New England. And so a lot of his plays are a little bit difficult for me to get into, but they are brilliant plays. There's a lot of excellent things to talk about. And the first one I want you to know about is actually one of his first plays, and it is called The Glass Menagerie.
So this is the story of the Glass Menagerie. Now the first thing to understand is that a menagerie is another word for a zoo, basically. It's a collection of animals. So the main character, well, the narrator character, the character that talks to the audience, is this guy named Tom. And Tennessee Williams was very upfront about the idea that Tom was basically him, and that this was a kind of autobiographical story about him and his family. There are only 4 characters in the Glass Menagerie, and 3 of them are a family. You got Tom, you have his mother, Amanda, and his sister, Laura. Now, Amanda is a faded Southern belle. She has had a tough life raising these 2 children by herself, and they lived down in the South. She had a husband, and her husband left them, basically just because he kind of got bored with her. Amanda feels very guilty about this, and she feels like somehow she has failed her children, and so she's very concerned about making sure that they can get by. She's very practical, and she's very stubborn, and she's a very strong character, but she's worried about it. She's worried about Tom, because Tom spends way too much time going to the movies and not really doing anything with his life, and she wants him to be able to get along with himself. But she's much more concerned about Laura, because Laura is very shy. She's a very shy character that doesn't really like to see anybody. She actually quit high school, and then eventually she had a little secretary school, and she quit that too because she was just too shy to talk to people and stuff. And Amanda's very concerned about Laura because she feels like if Laura doesn't find somebody, then she's going to be alone forever and she'll be miserable. And a lot of times you can kind of see that Amanda really is seeing that it's like it's her fault. She's alone and miserable without a man, and she feels like Laura is going to be alone and miserable without a man. Laura, though, is just very, very, very painfully shy. So Laura is painfully shy, and in fact she doesn't spend enough time with people at all. What she does spend time with is a collection of glass animals that she spends a lot of time with. And especially the one that is her very, very favorite is a unicorn. I know, that's not a unicorn, that's a dragon deal, that's all I got. In any case, though, she loves this little unicorn, and she spends all this time with these little glass figures, and Amanda's very disturbed by this because the glass figures aren't people, and she's afraid that Laura's going to be alone forever. And so eventually she's able to convince Tom to help her do something about this. She basically tells Tom that she wants him to bring home a guy that he works with. She doesn't care which one it is. She just wants him to bring home a guy, someone that is decent, someone that hopefully they can try to convince Laura and this guy to get together so that Laura won't be alone. She feels like the solution is for Laura to have a beau, to have like a boyfriend. Tom doesn't like this. This is very uncomfortable for him to try to bring somebody home to try to set up with his sister. This is weird. And Laura, who is very aware that they're doing this, is a little uncomfortable about this as well because she feels like, well, that she's just kind of this burden that they're trying to bring home and foist her off on somebody. But Amanda insists it's got to happen. Eventually Tom says, fine, fine, fine. And Tom goes and brings home a guy named Jim, who is a guy that he works with. Jim has no idea that they're setting him up right now, but they have this wonderful little meal together, and they're having this dinner, and it turns out that Laura knows Jim. They actually went to school together, and Jim was very big and popular, and she wasn't very popular at all, so they're kind of acquainted, but didn't really know each other. But anyway, they're having this dinner together, and it's going fairly well. So well, in fact, that Amanda says to Tom, "Hey, Tom, help me out with something in this other room," and she leaves to try to leave them alone together. In fact, the power goes out, and so it's all in candlelight, and so Amanda thinks this might have something. And they start talking, and Jim says, "You know, you really don't need to be so shy. You're actually a lovely little girl. You're a lovely person." And they have this little dance where they start dancing together and stuff. Basically, not because he likes her so much, as because he's trying to let her see that she is a wonderful person. And while they're dancing, he ended up accidentally bumping the table where her Glass Menagerie stuff is. And the unicorn falls and the horn breaks off. And Jim's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He didn't mean to do anything like that. He feels terrible about it. And she says, "It's okay, because his horn broke off, so now he just looks like a horse, so he looks just like all of the other ones." And there's a little symbolism there if you can't figure it out. And then Jim, as he's looking around, he notices, wait, where'd Tom and Amanda go? And he suddenly realizes, oh, they're trying to set me up with you. Look, I don't mean to hurt your feelings or anything like that, but I have a fiance. You know, he never was trying to lead her on or anything like this, because he's not like that, but he's like, you know, he's not gonna be set up with her because he already has a fiance. He says, "But if I didn't, I probably would love to be going out with you because you're really, really sweet." And she knows he means it. And then she's happy because she doesn't need to actually have a man. To know that a man could love her is enough for her. And then Jim says, "I want to try to avoid the awkwardness. I'm just going to leave by the back door." Is that okay? He says, "Yep, that's fine." And so he leaves by the back door. And Amanda and Tom come back, and Amanda's like, where is he? What's going on? And Laura tells her, it's okay, it's okay. Turns out he has a fiance, and so there was never a thing. Amanda's very upset. She turns on Tom, starts yelling and shouting, like, you knew about that the whole time, didn't you? You were just really going to do that to try to humiliate your sisters. Like, no, I didn't know. How would I know about that? And he's like, no, you did this. Your sister's going to be lonely and sad forever. It's all your fault. And there's a big blow up, basically, and he just says, oh, I gotta go. I'm going to the movies. And he goes off, and then, like I said, he talks to the audience several times, and then this is kind of the last speech. He talks to the audience and says, I didn't go to the movies, I went much, much further. And he basically talks about that was basically when he left home, is after that whole issue. And like I said, this was more or less autobiographical, because Tennessee Williams is talking about his own family. And the last thing he says is, I feel bad that I didn't help my sister, and I hope that she's still happy in some way. And he says, go ahead and blow out your candles, because there was a little birthday cake there. And Laura blows out the candles, and that's the end of the play.
So that's the Glass Menagerie. Another really important play that Tennessee Williams wrote is called A Streetcar Named Desire. Now, that title throws people a little bit, so I like to go ahead and give you a little bit of trivia. This is set in New Orleans. And in New Orleans, they have basically a subway system similar to what we have, but instead of having different lines named after like colors, like the red line and the green line, like we have in Boston, their different trains, which they call streetcars, actually have special names, and they're called things like lion and stallion and stuff like this. And there is, in fact, or I assume there is, based on this play, one of the streetcars is named Desire. Now, that actually fits pretty well, because this is a play about illusion and finding romantic stories in everyday life. Let's go ahead and tell you about it. This is the play A Streetcar Named Desire.
All right, so this is the story of A Streetcar Named Desire. The main character is a woman named Blanche. Blanche is 30 years old. She's a widow, meaning that her husband died already, apparently, and she has come to New Orleans to live with her sister Stella. Stella has a husband named Stanley, and at first she's wondering, what's going on, Blanche? Why are you here? And Blanche says, oh, I had to take a leave of absence from my job as an English teacher because, you see, my nerves were just heavily shot. And then after a while she admits that things have gone very, very terrible. She's lost their their family home. Their family home is called Bellerive, and she's lost it. It got taken away from them and stuff like that. And she's all brokenhearted about that. And so she's taken leave from working as an English teacher because she's just too brokenhearted about it. And Stella's like, well, I guess you can stay here for a while. Stanley's like, ugh, I don't want her here. Stanley and Blanche almost right away start to butt heads with each other because Blanche is very, very fancy. And she's just always, very genteel and wearing dresses and wants everything to be prim and proper. Stanley is a brute. He's just kind of thump, thump, do what I'm told kind of thing. He doesn't put on any fancy stuff. He just does his stuff. And so the two of them really butt heads because she thinks that he is, just this brutish man. And he thinks that she's just a stuck-up lady. And so they butt heads. Stella loves them both, and so she tries to keep peace between them. But it's pretty clear that if she's got to choose, she's going to go with her husband. Which makes Blanche quite upset because she feels like Stanley is just such a lout. This comes to a head in the very beginning of it when Stanley is having a poker game. So he's got a bunch of guys over for this poker game, one of which Blanche is actually quite interested in. His name is Mitch, and he seems like he's actually quite a nice guy. The rest of them are like brutish kind of guys that just kind of seem like, well, just normal guys, really. Very much like Stanley, but Mitch seems just a bit more genteel, and so she is kind of flirting with him, and he's kind of flirting back, and Stanley's getting annoyed by this because there's all of these interruptions to his poker game. And he gets upset about a couple of other things, and he ends up hitting Stella. And when he hits Stella, she's hurt, obviously. Blanche, though, is disgusted. Like, we will leave now. And he goes upstairs to their neighbor's house, their neighbor Eunice up there. And they say, you can never go back to him. He's a terrible, terrible man. It's like, that's all right. He just lost his temper. No, he's a terrible man. Meanwhile, he goes down to his buddies are done with their game for a while now. He goes down into the alley at the bottom. And he's calling for Stella to come back to him. And this is actually probably the most famous line in the whole play. Because all he really does is stands down there and shouts out, Stella! Hey, Stella! Stella! And he's making so much noise. And it's just kind of like disturbing all of the neighbors and stuff like that. And Blanche is sitting there saying, no, Stella, you cannot go down to him. He cannot go down to him because he's a horrible lout and he hit you. And she's like, but he's making all this noise. She's disturbing the neighbors. No, but you cannot go down to him. Besides, I love him and stuff. And she does go back to him. And Blanche is just horrified by this, that he would do such a thing. The play goes on for a while. Other things happen. Her and Mitch ends up kind of becoming sort of a thing. And he feels bad for her, and she kind of really needs someone that will feel bad for her because she's clearly very upset about things, and she's starting to get a little crazy. Stella, by the way, is pregnant, and she is going off to have her baby at one point, and this is where the kind of confrontation between Blanche and Stanley happens, because Stella has gone off to the hospital to have her baby, leaving the two of these guys in here together, and they start arguing and fighting over this. It turns out Stanley is not as stupid as he's acting to be. He has done a lot of research, and he's found out what really happened. He's like, yeah, you're not taking a leave of absence from being an English teacher. You were fired from being an English teacher. No, it's not true. It's not true. Yes, it is. I have the evidence. You were fired because you had an affair with one of your students. No, he was a little boy. He didn't do anything wrong. It was like, no. And so he basically has all this. She's been living this kind of dream world, almost like this romantic fantasy, and none of it's real. And he tells her that, look, I'm not going to have you ruin my friends with your nonsense. He told Mitch all about this. And when Mitch comes to see her and find out if it's true, at first she tries to deny it and stuff like that, but eventually she has to tell him, yes, it's true. And he leaves her. And she's just beside herself and upset. This comes back to, and at that point Stella goes to have her baby, and leaving these two alone together, and they get in arguments and fighting and stuff like this, and then she ends up just kind of swooning. And he picks her up and takes her into the bedroom. And the suggestion is that he may have raped her. One of the things I love about the play, though, is it doesn't actually say that. It lets you kind of wonder whether that's what happened. Because on the one hand, that is exactly the kind of thing that she would say of like, oh, everything's against me and everything, oh, he's such a brutish, horrible monster that did such a thing. That is the kind of lie she would tell. But that's also kind of the sort of thing that he would do. And one of the things I love about that is exactly the problem with rape a lot of the times, is you don't know whether it really happened. Who do you believe? When Stella does come back, Blanche does tell her what happened, but she's half insane. She's literally losing her mind. And Stella doesn't know if she believes her. She kind of doesn't want to, and so she doesn't. And at the end of the play, she's basically being taken away to an insane asylum. The last line she says is the doctors are coming to take her away to the insane asylum. She's like, I don't know who you are, but I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. And they take her away, and they're taking her away to an insane asylum. And of course, Stella's very, very upset about this. Stanley tries to do what he can to comfort her. Meantime, though, all his buddies are back, and they're playing poker again. And so he's trying to comfort her, but he's also kind of doesn't want to interrupt his poker game. And that's the end of the play. So you might have noticed a pervasive thing in Tennessee Williams' work, and it goes in almost all of his plays. And it might be something in Southern culture, I'm not really sure. But you notice that the problem that Amanda has and the problem that Laura has is that they are single women. And the suggestion is that single women are not going to be happy being single. And I don't know if Tennessee Williams is saying that so much, he's just kind of fighting against that, but that is certainly something that was believed in the culture where these guys live. Same thing with Blanche. The fact that she is single is something that leads her to misery. And Stella is not single, but she does everything possible to make sure that she doesn't lose her husband, even to going back to him when he hits her and may have raped her sister. So the question I have for you guys, though, is how much has that changed, really? Because ultimately, almost every movie, a happy ending means the guy and the girl get together. I mean, think about it. If you got even an action movie or something like that, if there's a girl in it, she's going to end up kissing the guy at the end. That's just what always happens. Is that a problem? Is that a problem that we feel like happy endings mean that people get together? Or is it not a problem? Because after all, love is a very big important thing, and happy endings do mean when people fall in love. What do you think? Talk in the discussion down below whether you think falling in love and men and women being married or whatever is automatically what has to happen in a happy ending, yes or no.